KD, and this is the Delta League Podcast, Week 12. Delta, the only sport in which 3 teams play at the same time. And this week, the action continues, and we are but days away from the final trade deadline. So, we're going to start in the only place that's appropriate, and that is Atlanta, where the Inferno play host to the Philadelphia Shred and the Boston Revolution. And in this one, Philadelphia gets the victory. Philadelphia 20, Boston 17, Atlanta 15. This game started with Atlanta raising the number 3 of Bello Hess into the rafters in a very moving ceremony that included his friends and family. Unfortunately, the Inferno could not come out of this game with the victory. Now, earlier this week, the head coach of the Boston Revolution, Marty Kroll, finally went down on the chopping block. It's amazing how often head coaches are used as the scapegoat for bad upper management. As a result, assistant coach Gino Alexander will take over for the remainder of the year. Now, Indigo Bard set the Twitter world aflame with what she thought of the whole P. Diddy controversy. Quote, "I guess it's wrong to say, but all these motherfuckers should be put against a wall and shot." Her account was suspended, but not before the screenshots were taken and retweeted. In addition to losing this game, Atlanta also lost the services of assistant captain Armando Chiodo, who tore his ACL, and he is gone for 15 weeks, rendering his season finished. So, for Atlanta, leading the way it was Eduardo Steven and Hedy Fenech with 3 goals each. For Philadelphia, leading the way, John Holmes Galucho, 4 goals. And for the Revolution, it was David Toro with 5 goals. And in the end, it was Philadelphia getting the 4 points. Boston, 2 points. Atlanta, 0. Now, let's move on now to Montreal, Quebec, where the Maelstrom are playing host to the LA Fallen Angels and the New York Fire Demons. And in this one, New York wins it, 24. Los Angeles, 18. Montreal, 16. At the end of last week, New York player Harrison Alston announced his immediate retirement from Delta, citing the insane toll the game and sports in general have taken on his body. The organization wished him well in his future endeavors, but that leaves them 1 body short. Now, Montreal players Edwin Milligan and J.J. Syverson, along with New York captain Luke Brownlee, got a yellow card in this game. This could have easily been black cards all around, but the officials seem to be pretty lenient in this game overall. Chalk it up to the official letting the boys and girls play. Now, after this game, Montreal announced that Stefan Greiss has broken 3 ribs as a result of his collision into the goal. Unfortunately for him, it's a 6-week recovery time, meaning he'll be back week 19, which is the championship weekend. Montreal better pray for a miracle because it looked like Montreal's chances just went in to the shit can. So, for Montreal, leading the way, it was Kern Nataraja with 5 goals. For the Fallen Angels, it was Marty Hagar with 5 goals. And for the Fire Demons, it was Rock Weinstein with 7 goals. And in the end of this one, New York gets the 4 points. Los Angeles, 2 points. Montreal, 0. Now, let's move on to Memphis, where the Pharaohs were hosting the Vancouver Orcas and the Seattle Pirates. And in this one, Seattle gets more than the other 2 teams combined. Seattle, 29, Memphis, 16, Vancouver, 11. What the hell happened there? Well, Chicky Bajorski for Vancouver, he was a scratch for this game due to a death in the family. God frickin' speed. Now, Jerome Gelbert, he was yellow carded in this game because he was mouthing off to the official sitting in a full leg cast. Perhaps a ball and gag would be best. But then Corbin Womack, torn bicep, gone for the year, jumps in. What possible good can come of this? He gets on the court. The answer is nothing. That fax machine is printing up the receipt as we speak. Now, for Memphis, leading the way, it was Gerard Sredell with 5 goals. For the Orcas, it was Didi Christofferson and Kevin Vandermerve with 3 goals each. And for the Pirates, once again, Tommy Anastos, 9 goals. And in the end of this one, it was Seattle getting the 4 points. Memphis, 2 points. Vancouver, 0. Now, let's move on now to Chicago, where the Pride hosting the Salt Lake City Sting and the Denver Sky. And in this one, Salt Lake City, 16. Denver, also 16. Chicago, 15. 1 point separating 3 teams. Wednesday, the Delta world was not surprised by the arrest of Chicago player Georgios Stokidis, who was picked up on a DUI. As a result, he's been suspended for 8 weeks. There's a saying that says when it rains, it pours. But in Chicago's case, when it rains, it turns into an ocean and a great white rips your torso in half. Now, before this game even got started, there was an insane tailgate party on the outside of the stadium. Unfortunately, some bad meat got distributed, causing the largest case of food poisoning in the history of sports. Nobody ended up seeing Salt Lake City pick up the 3 points because they were retching their guts out. It was disgusting. It wouldn't be Chicago without a fight, but this time it was a fight to get to the toilet on time. Now, a week after Dallas Lone Stars mascot, the Loney Cowboy, was outed for sexually inappropriate behavior, the Salt Lake City mascot, Turk Brody, also known as the Stinger, was summarily dismissed today after rumors that cheerleaders and male players were repeatedly sexually harassed. Salt Lake City coach Pete Chu came out as highly critical of player Reggie Joagdev, not for his play, but for his sense of fashion. He hopes the club will institute a dress code because he looks like a slob. Now, in less expected news, Denver Sky player Anastasio Polimu is gay. Believe it or not, that is the third player in Denver this year to come out of the closet. He joins Samson Sartell and Alex Daigneault on the Rainbow Float next summer. That is just absolutely, mathematically improbable. Now, this game got a little dirty when Salt Lake City players Britt Cromie and Eli Ercolani were yellow carded, along with Denver's Dan Holguin and Chicago's Bartel Omartian for some unsportsmanlike conduct. Then, Chicago's Paul Marullo reminds everybody why he's the only player in the league with 3 black cards. That is a 6-game suspension, and as a result, he's done for the year. The question is, how the hell does Chicago even continue? This team is like a Borg cube. It continues to function even though 60% of the team is inoperable. Now, for Chicago, leading the way was Das Hawthorne with 7 goals. For Salt Lake City, it was the Ratchet, Gilbert Ratchev, with 4 goals. And for Denver, it was Larry McMaster with 6 goals. And in the end of this one, it was Salt Lake City with 3 points. Denver, 3 points. Chicago, nothing. Now, let's move on to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where the Toronto Titans play host to the Phoenix Rising and the Dallas Lone Stars. And in this one, Phoenix pulls out a squeaker. Phoenix 27, Toronto 26, Dallas 20. This game was delayed several hours after the stadium received a bomb threat. After police had thoroughly searched the venue and came up with nothing, delaying the game significantly. The fans that did stick around got their money's worth in this one. In this game, during the second period intermission, a fan won a car by scoring on Toronto Titans player Steve Fotopoulos. Afterward, drunk Phoenix fans jumped on the court, mobbed him, and everybody got shown the door. Now, Dallas fans were upset by this loss, and they proceeded to throw their jerseys onto the court. My only question would be, what should Miami fans be doing if Dallas fans are losing their shit? Calm down, man. You're in the playoffs. Now, Dallas player Lo Ang came to the court sporting a new tattoo, but fans on Instagram saw it before anybody knew it because it's in his genital area. It says Hung Lo, and it's hardly controversial, but his family hates the tattoo. No shit. Leading the way for Toronto, it was Bundy Reed and Lyles Houston with 5 goals each. For Phoenix, it was Gabriella Davignon with 8 goals. And for the Lone Stars, it was Captain Will Curry with 7 goals. And in the end, it was Phoenix with the 4 points. Toronto, 2 points. Dallas, 0. And let's move on now to Miami, where the Vortex are hosting the Detroit Rock and the Washington Power. And in this one, Washington wins again. Washington 20, Detroit 18, Miami 16. Now, Detroit player Mark Dupree blamed the loss of this game on bad officiating. Quote, "We got screwed so many times out there, it's not even funny. I don't know what game the refs are seeing out there, but it's not the same game I saw. They need some glasses because they cost us the game today." When Darcy sees this quote, he may go into solitary confinement. I thought we went over this. Now, speaking of solitary confinement, Jill Falsey, under suspension jumps on the court to accuse the official of being drunk. She's history. And because it's her second black card, she's gone for 3 games. Now, for Miami, leading the way, it was Randy Magnuson and Bob Nyhan with 3 goals each. For Detroit, leading the way, it was Rad Marnane with 4 goals. And for Washington, it was Chevy Colella with 4 goals. And in the end, it's Washington with the 4 points. Detroit, 2 points. Miami, 0. So, let's move on to the standings. And to nobody's surprise, it's in first place. Seattle, 42 points. New York and Memphis, 34 points each. Toronto, 33 points. Vancouver, 30 points. Phoenix, 28 points. Dallas, 27 points. Atlanta, 26 points. Washington, 23 points. And we draw the playoff line there. Now, in 10th place because of a tiebreaker, Montreal, also with 23 points. Los Angeles, 21 points. Salt Lake City, 19 points. Chicago, Philadelphia, and Detroit, 18 points each. Boston, 17 points. Denver, 16 points. And coming up the rear, Miami, 5 bloody points. Now, on to the scoring lead. Vladimir Millet and Evan Parawal from Seattle, 57 goals each. Then it was Laurie Moss and Lyles Houston with 48 goals. Next, Tommy Anastos from Seattle, Nathaniel Mansfield from Dallas, Star Palmer from Chicago, and Stefan Grice from Montreal, 47 goals each. Then Nan Freeling from Phoenix, Dus Hawthorne, Chicago, Rhino Montalban from New York, 46 goals each. And with 45 goals, Rock Weinstein from New York. Before we hit the mailbag, we will get on to the league news. Now, New York Fire Demons player Harrison Alston has retired. Too roughed up, body broken, going home for good. Now, also retired this week is Denver Sky's Knox Schreiber. He says Delta game is too rough. I'm going back to arena football. Jesus Christ. Now, on to the Nan Freeling arrest. This was an arrest for roughing up an escort the night before when Phoenix flew into town. They frequented a salacious club. They hooked up, during which time she alleges he roughed her up very badly. He says everything was consensual. The club has suspended him until such time as he is absolved of the crime or found guilty of the accusations. Now, on to the mailbag. Real TJ. How is the playoff system going to work? Who plays who in this Wheel of Fire tournament? Well, TJ, we've got 9 out of the 18 teams in this thing, and there's some tiebreakers just in case some teams have the same number of points. And the first tiebreaker is number of wins. That normally will do it. But sometimes that's not the case. So the second tiebreaker is number of two-way victories. The third tiebreaker is second place finishes. The fourth tiebreaker is accumulated points in head-to-head games. And the fifth tiebreaker is total goals scored on season. And the last tiebreaker is, believe it or not, coin toss. Nobody wants to get it to that point. Now, the current playoff picture will be the following. It'll be seed 1 versus seed 4 versus seed 9. And as of today, that is Seattle, Toronto, and Washington. The next game is seed 2 versus seed 5 versus seed 8, which would be New York versus Vancouver versus Atlanta. And the third game will be seed 3 versus seed 6 versus seed 7, which will be Memphis versus Phoenix versus Dallas. Now, let's move on to Matty V. This playoff run is going to be very interesting. Answer me this question. Who would you not want to be going into the Wheel of Fire tournament? I would not want to be anyone with a 4 seed or a 9 seed. Those two teams will probably inevitably play Seattle, who looks like a lock to win the Premiership Shield by at least half a dozen points. Right now, the pure unfortunate souls are Toronto, who has the 4 seed, and Washington, who just overtook Montreal for the 9 seed this week. Toronto has been good this year. They haven't dropped below 5th all season, and it would be unfortunate to meet a sad end in the first round, but let's be serious here. Toronto has not fared well against Seattle this year. They have lost every match against the Pirates and Washington. They're the beneficiaries of Montreal falling off as hard as they have. Many things can happen between now and week 18, which is only 6 weeks away. And if Seattle suddenly gets a catastrophic injury, this playoff bracket could very well explode and anyone could win. But right now, just pencil in Seattle for the finals. That is what I would call a safe bet. Now, at Real Piero Barone. Oh my God, he's alive. Jesus Christ. Just sitting here on my beachfront resort, soaking in the spoils of war. What are the odds that Quebec City gets a franchise so that Montreal can get a real rivalry? Because that Toronto team is going down, as I predicted, overrated. Plus, Washington is plus 1,700 to win the championship. Thinking about opening a Bugatti dealership. So I'm laying down the house on the Power. Oh, gee. Washington is going to need an inside job if they want to get to the finals. But in order to make real money, you're going to have to lay money on those other seeds, man. Like Phoenix, because the Pirates are negative 800. Too much risk for not enough gain. Quebec City? Are you serious, man? Montreal has Quebec City as their minor league affiliate. There's 12 more cities that are more desirable than to see Les Patriotes du Québec as a major league Delta team. Like, I understand your loathing of the Toronto team. Any city where it takes 2 hours of traffic to get anywhere when you live there can sour you on this town. Believe me. And I think Edmonton gets a team before Quebec does. Now, let's go into next week's games and predictions. Now, it will be LA, the Fallen Angels, playing host to the Detroit Rock and the Montreal Maelstrom. Montreal just lost one of their star players this week, but teams are going to need everyone to contribute given how close these games have become. I'm picking a close one with Montreal getting 0 point. Now, on to Vancouver, where the Orcas, they will host the Atlanta Inferno and the Miami Vortex. Now, Vancouver recently went down with a bunch of injuries at exactly the wrong time. Atlanta is now down 2 players as well, and Miami might as well be down 2 players, but they're just horrible overall. I'm taking Atlanta and Vancouver to get 2 points, even though they don't deserve it. Now, Salt Lake City, the Sting, play host to the Seattle Pirates and the Boston Revolution. And the way Seattle is playing, everyone else is battling for second place. Looking at the competition this week, Seattle could sit half the roster and come out of this with 4 points. Raise the black flag, because the Pirates keep looting the treasure. Now, on to Phoenix, where the Rising play host to the Philadelphia Shred and the Toronto Titans. And last week, Phoenix beat Toronto by 1 point. This week, Toronto returns the favor because TO, with a fresh roster, is blood in the water. Philadelphia just keeps making the New York GM, Carmen Forgione, look like a total genius by fleecing this sad sack team. So now they have no playoffs and no draft picks. Now, on to Dallas, where the Lone Stars host the New York Fire Demons and the Memphis Pharaohs. This is another high-powered game with contenders who have important points on the line. Dallas is hit or miss, but they still have enough points in the kitty to afford some mistakes. Problem is Atlanta and Phoenix have started to inch up on them, so they need the points to stem the tide. New York has returned to form, and Memphis always seemed to be dangerous. So I'm going to take New York in a high-scoring game with strong playoff implications. Now, finally, last game of the week, the Denver Sky, they play host to the Chicago Pride and the Washington Power, and Chicago's worries just keep getting bigger. That Pride bench looks like a morgue. Washington has played better in the last 4 weeks, but let's be honest, it's been a weak schedule, and they need to take advantage of these games so they can pad their lead on Montreal. The condition of this Chicago team means that Denver may very well climb out of the abyss of 17th place this week. And looking at the competition, I'd lay some money on that. Now, that is it for this week in the Delta League podcast. And join us in a few days for the final trade deadline show. Now, join us next week where the action continues and never stops. See ya.